There we are. Oh, it unmuted itself. Okay, that's good. I always keep forgetting if my mic unmutes automatically or not. But here we are, April 2025, the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit stand-up live right here, right now, with a surprise Brandon, who wasn't supposed to be here, but he is here all the way from Florida, or we're in Florida,
Sunny
US.
Orlando. Technically Lake
Orlando.
Mary, if anybody knows where that is.
Absolutely not. Um, I know Orlando. I've been there, but otherwise, not really. And James with a great working microphone. James, let everyone hear
Yes,
you.
my microphone is working great
Yeah.
right now.
Woo!
And I'm in sunny BC, Canada, and it is a beautiful day here right now. It is not raining, so that's a plus, which is nice considering we live in the Toronto rainforest.
Cool.
But it's beautiful. Love that part of the world.
Absolutely. I have to confess, I've never been there, so that should be on my list. It is high on my list, actually, but 2 years makes it very expensive, and they'll just be like, "What's this? This is boring." Blah blah blah.
Trees.
Okay, it's fine.
Where's Disney?
Yeah, exactly. And Vladislav, as always, good to see you, man.
Yeah, hello. I'm also happy to be here with you after that much. Yeah.
Good. Perfect. All right. We don't have a very full agenda this month. It is, as always, public on our repository in the wiki. You can find out all the things that we're talking about with all the links, all the stuff right here, screen shared. So I guess that was the welcome and intro. We have some announcement. We have a release that I kind of lagged on because I was disappeared from the face of the earth because I was busy with a whole lot of things. And people were waiting here for me to do this release, but now it's finally here, 11.2.0, with the rating view by George. I think I saw him in the chat. Yes, there he is. George, thank you so much. I think it's been in the making for a little while, and now we have this great new feature that we can call a new thing in the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit. So really cool. Speech recognition fixes. I think we're also going to talk a little bit about offline tech support for speech recognition. But what are these fixes? Do you still remember, Vlad?
Yeah, actually, we fixed offline speech recognition with culture info because there was an incorrectly with underscore and dash between culture when it's transported from C# to Java, and we incorrectly transcribe that. So now everything should work as expected. Also, with this fix, we increased the version of full-flame speech recognition to Android 34. And but also we improved the from user experience. So now users can download offline language and just use it. Before that, there was no exception, no response. So from user perspective, they assume that it's start recognition, but nothing happened. So it may confuse some users. Now that's fixed.
Cool. Already in the chat, Tony Edwards saying, love the rating view. So, George, thank you so much. Still going back to the rating view, but the speech recognition is also very cool. Enhanced Copilot instructions, that's very cool. So, in case you didn't know, there's this new thing called AI. Maybe you've heard of it. So yeah, but one of the cool things that you can do in GitHub repositories right now is kind of like add a set of prompts and stuff, instructions that Copilot will automatically kind of like pick up whenever people go to interact with Copilot on your repository, or whenever you start coding for it, and you can say, hey, make sure that you adhere to these coding standards, and we're using this and that, and I don't know, you can put some stuff in there. So we have some Copilot instructions now on our repository as well, so that AI can help us even better with our vibe coding of the .NET Community Toolkit. Fixed touch behavior, always an ongoing thing, and some other things right here. Sean isn't here. I think we opened the behavior and the base converter again, so that people can use that in their own project if they want. You know a little bit about that, Brandon?
Yeah. So although rating view is probably the biggest feature, or definitely is the biggest feature of this PR, I would say this ability to inherit from behavior-based converter is the most asked for, because long story short, we have a lot of converters and a lot of behaviors that we support in the toolkit. And so we made a base behavior class and a base converter class that adds some type safety and does things that we need to do to make sure that you all have amazing behaviors and converters in the toolkit. But because behaviors and converters are public, any class they inherit from has to be public. And when we pushed out the original toolkit, folks, we didn't realize it, but folks at the time were inheriting from base behavior and base converter and doing their own thing. And it wasn't until a couple of issues started popping up around base behavior, base converter. We're like, oh, wait, well, that's not really supported. Like, you guys shouldn't be using that. That's internal for us. And so I think the big breaking change was in the .NET 9 PR. We made base behavior, its constructor private. So you could still inherit, but then you couldn't initialize the class. So it kind of de facto made it private, and found out a lot of people were using them, which totally fair. But we didn't have any unit tests around it. We didn't have any documentation around it. And so that was a big ask. Anytime somebody would say, why aren't these public? It was just, well, we don't, we never thought anybody would use them. So yeah, Sean did awesome work. He added all the unit tests in this PR. He wrote the docs for them. Those should be live now. And now everybody can use base behavior, base converter, because we modified them so that you can be type safe. And things like, if you just have a one-way converter, you can inherit from base one-way converter. It's a generic, so you can say what your to type is, your from type. They're really great. And so I'm excited folks get to use them. But yeah, scared the crap out of me when I found out folks were using them. We didn't have anything documented or tested. But yeah, big new feature in this PR.
Cool. That's how we learn. All right. Yeah, I mean, that's what happens. And then, bumped a couple of things down there in the instructions. So make sure that you're on the Xcodes, on the .NET versions, etc., and you do all the things there. We have a set of instructions to kind of like help you set things up so that you are doing the right thing for your project. Cool. Next, I already saw someone in the chat, Colin, who's here for the expander animation. So, Brandon, tell us all about it.
I will say I marked this as neat discussion, but I'm really glad Vlad's here to talk about it. Vlad's the creator of Expander. So actually, Vlad, have you had a chance to look at this at all?
Yeah, I looked at it actually
Nice.
just today when I prepared the agenda. So I like the idea, and I see other libraries that support Expander has animations out of the box. With our initial implementation, we didn't include it. But if you scroll down and open the related PR to that one, I actually don't like the implementation. Because it really, probably it should be in the this one. It relies on property changed of when we expand and collapse our expander, and it subscribes to that property changes and validate what happened. And I don't think that is the best way how it should be implemented. Maybe you have some ideas, or there is nothing wrong with that.
Interesting. I mean, we definitely do this. Like, I'm still working on that pop-up PR. Really hoping to get that knocked out this month. But yeah, we definitely inherit, or we leverage property change to other places in the toolkit. But and I haven't looked at this code yet, but I'll say right away, my first thought is, if we're waiting for the height to change, then isn't it too late to react and animate? Because as soon as the height changes, MAUI will redraw that UI. And so that's just my first thought. I haven't actually played with this code and seen it work in action though.
Yeah, I see on line 70, it dynamically changes the hits. So that means that it continues like increasing the size and that property may change multiple times. So that is why it will increase it while it's expanded to some specific value. Yeah, you can see it's maximum content hits.
I just wonder about
until that one
animation
is
jink.
happened, it will extend.
Yeah, like my concern is just if the height changes and then we animate, it'll have this like weird stutter. But again, this is my first time looking at the code, so I can't say much.
I thought about real animation that we have from MAUI, like fading or something like that, without changing the size like this. So that is why it's good that we discuss that one.
Do we not hook something like the property changing event?
Actually, I would not go with property changed at all. I mean, when user click on that button, we can just start animation, and that is how it works. From how I understand it should work, without manually changing the heads. Or so I don't think we need property changed at all here.
Yeah, but James, you're totally right. Like property changing means that the value hasn't changed yet, which means MAUI hadn't redrawn it yet. So that, in this specific example, definitely, James, property changing would have been my first thought too. But
yeah, I agree with Vlad. It's probably not the best approach, but I actually don't know what the best approach would be.
Yeah, I was gonna say for this proposal, because it still is in the proposal phase, and Stephen was nice enough to show us kind of a PR of what he was thinking. We still also have to approve this. Somebody's got to volunteer to champion it, to work with Stephen on it. So we still got plenty of time to figure out the best way to do it. And actually, this is why we do it like this, if anybody's wondering, because there's a million ways to do everything, right? But maybe one's slightly better, or maybe one has a memory leak and one doesn't. But yeah, I agree, Vlad. I think, when the user taps the expand button, because we control that, we own that button on the expander if memory serves. So we can hook into those events.
And George mentioned in the comments that for animations, I like is in, is out style animation. So that's how it can be implemented.
Yeah, and we can even do cool stuff where in like the apps I push to the App Store, I'll do these fancy animations where you animate it too far and then it kind of snaps back a little. Mm-hmm. So like, when you're scrolling on your phone and you hit the bottom, it kind of like
ideally,
those are fun.
I see that we can just add an animation property and user can manually choose which animations use for them. And we just allow them to run that animation for the content, and that's it without implementing, or we can have a default animation.
Yeah, no, I think that's perfect. Yeah, default animation, like we have that, I think it's called animation behavior, if memory serves, where we basically do the same thing. Like we have a default, but you can provide your own animation. So I think, or not, I think the reason I tagged this was, I agreed, like expander animation, that sounds great. And so I wanted to bring it up to see if anybody has the time to champion it. And no pressure, Vlad, but you are the expander expert.
I can champion it. I just thought that we need to vote for it one, but I think we all agreed.
Yeah, I agree. Like this needs to happen.
Same. I think we need one more vote technically, but we can get that async in the Discord channel.
What's that, Sean? What's that? Oh, he agrees too. Yeah.
Oh, Sean agrees? Oh,
yeah. He just called me. It's very weird.
Awesome. All right. Yeah, we'll go ahead and check the box. Why not?
And remove needs discussion. I think we are done.
Oh, thank you. I always forget to do that. And then we circle back the next month. I'm like, didn't we talk about this last month?
Yeah.
All right, so we'll put this in the approved column, and sweet, now it's official. So thank you, Stephen. Thanks for volunteering this. This is a great idea.
I think he did something before, right? He did the math operator stuff, and he was definitely also involved with the camera view. So,
so we'll see him on the maintainer team in a couple months.
Yeah, exactly. Come join us. All right, cool. Yeah, looking forward to this one. Animation is always cool, right? That automatically makes your app look more professional. So that's great. Okay, Vlad, since you're talking anyway, more text to speech, speech to text. Sorry, the other way around. Support audio media file. What does that do?
Yeah, that is just an if you already have a file that you record before, so it's not like an in time, like when you just using your microphone and dictating something. So you can already have some audio file, media file that you just want to extract the text from that audio. It definitely supports on Windows. I saw that API. As for Android, I haven't found directly ways. So I found the workaround that it can like play audio from media player and set a source to the speech recognition service. So it will like the length of the media will be the same time how it takes to recognize it. Maybe it's not a perfect. So if you have an 1 hour audio file, it will take 1 hour just to recognize it. But it's just a workaround. Yeah, maybe not perfect, but at least can be implemented, right? Another solutions like it use a Whisper or some other libraries, but I don't know if we want to add some third-party libraries to our main community toolkit. So probably it's not the way how we will implement it from scratch. As for Windows, it's supported. As for iOS, I think it supports as well.
God, it's tough. Yeah, if all the platforms supported it natively, then that would make this conversation a lot easier.
That's really weird that Android doesn't have it, because I think it's even easier just to have a file that can be recognized. But that API seems like it doesn't exist in real speech recognition.
Ooh, yeah, that's so tough, Vlad. Because yeah, if I use this, like, let's say we implemented this and using the workaround you're saying on Android, or just essentially ingest the audio as it plays. Well, let's say I run my app on Windows, iOS, I test everything out, it works great, and then like all my Android users start complaining that like the app takes 5 minutes to do this thing, and you're like, what are you talking about?
Well, we can try to set the speed of the video to x5. Maybe it will work, but
man, I'll say this, like, I know nothing about how this stuff works, especially not on the specific platforms, but it feels like this is one where it's like, awesome idea, but we need some help from Android. Or maybe there's an Android expert out there. If anybody knows, maybe already has experience with this. Because yeah, that'd be my big concern. Is
there's also an issue with Android file access. If you didn't bring the file in through the package and it's an external file that say somebody downloaded, accessing that file is not trivial, like really not trivial.
Yeah, we have a file saver, and we have a folder picker file saver, and we already know how to work with Android file system. Yeah, it's not trivial, but we can at least reuse that to have a file. So for user perspective, it just need to specify the valid file. And I think even in MAUI, it have a file system API, so it can at least it should allow user to specify. I see it can be just a stream as a parameter of the method. So media file can be used as a stream, not a direct file path, and it will be up to user how they get the stream.
I'll say, curious what everybody else thinks, but yeah, it feels like I don't know, there's zero comments on this, but yeah, Vlad, maybe respond to this and it's like, yeah, thanks. It sounds like a great idea, but we haven't figured out Android. We need to figure out Android.
Yeah, I agree. Until we find a good solution for Android, we should not start implementing it.
Do we have a solution for iOS or?
Yeah, I think for iOS it exists.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and the same for MyCatalyst, but yeah.
Has anybody actually checked to see if there's an Android library that adds support for this? Because it seems like a kind of a thing that would be common and popular.
Yeah, from libraries that they found, they use Google Speech API or Azure Cognitive Service, right? So it's not like an offline on device recognition, and it requires some API key, so it's a paid service, let's say.
Yeah, I'm all the concerns that were just mentioned. And the other thing that just popped into my head is like, cool feature. I never really had the need to implement this like this. Speech to text, okay. From a media file, I don't know. So I also kind of like wonder how big the audience is for this. So maybe that's something, but
yeah,
I just took a quick look, and there's a Play services for text recognition and other things like that. For well, that's text recognition. That's not voice recognition. But I imagine there's a library that the Android team has put out there because they have like thousands of them that we have access through Microsoft. So it probably exists.
Yeah, I will try again to find if there is any available library on Java or Kotlin or something native. But yeah, for now, yeah.
If you, watcher, now or in the future, watching the stream and you're like, I know exactly how to do this, then please let us know. Cool. We have some somewhat unrelated questions going on in the chat about what the correct way and pattern is to do an async API call in the constructor of a view model, which is probably not something that you want to do. But, lovely as we are, we're still trying to help. You probably don't want to do it in the constructor. And then Brendan say on appearing. I think for at least specific to MAUI apps, you also have like on navigated too. I think if you're using Shell, that's something that you can use as well. So there's lots of ways, but you probably don't want to do it in the constructor. That's there. And also, you're watching the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit. I know it's confusing, but the Community Toolkit MVVM is a slightly different one. Were you going to say something, Brandon?
Yeah,
but
no,
it's fun as well.
Yeah. Async stuff shouldn't happen in the constructor. Constructors are meant to initialize an object, assign it to a location in memory. But if you want to kick things off, you want to use some sort of safe fire and forget extension method. I have one in my NuGet package, async await best practices. But yeah, if you can avoid any async stuff in constructor, you should, because you're going to have weird bugs you'll run into later.
Cool. So that as an aside. Which is a nice break from only Vlad talking about speech stuff. Because now we have a PR with offline speech recognition, that Vlad knows about as well.
Yeah. As for this PR, it's an attempt to back Android 33 version for offline speech recognition, because we increased it for 34 because of one API that only available in 34 version of an Android. And actually, I don't like this PR. Yeah, we have a big discussion here, and yeah, from developer perspective, they want to have the feature in Android 1, I think. Yeah, but it's available in Android 33. But as for user perspective, yeah, we need to notify users and wait. And so how offline recognition works? Let's start from scratch. So user click start speech recognition, And if language is not available on user's device, it needs to be somehow downloaded. So it will take some time until that happens. And on Android 33, there is no way to say that and wait until that API, until the offline model downloaded on device. And that was available starting from Android 34. So that is why I increased this method and await for our downloading process. So that is why back into Android 33 will back users to a way that they will. So for them, there will be like a listening label that recognition started, but model is not downloaded yet. So recognition actually will not start. So we either need to throw exception in that case that your model is still downloading, but I don't expect that it will be good to. So user will be just developers will just need to in for loop wait until and check if the model downloaded multiple times. So it's not a good way from user's perspective. So I have some concerns about downgrading the version to Android 33.
Yeah, what is the latest version of Android? What are we on now? 35?
35.
And so, yeah, I get it. Yeah, supporting 34 and up, that's tight. That's not a lot of users. But yeah, no, I hear you, Vlad. That would change. We'd have to re-architect the entire thing to account for automatically downloading libraries or notifying the user that the library doesn't exist. And now, like, are we using toasts and pop-ups inside of speech recognition? Like, it feels like it gets messy.
The only way I could think of it that would make it actually work would be to create an API to allow them to know that, allow developers to know that it isn't available, it needs to be downloaded, and to simply notify the app or notify the speech recognition program that it's downloaded and ready, and then throw an exception if it isn't. So basically put it all on the developer to do the download and setup, and just have the surface for having the technical capability on our end, and have the developer be responsible for making sure the prerequisites are met.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, but anyway, we will not know when it's done, so it will. So the user will just need to multiple times execute the method check if it's available, if it's not available. And
or you could have a grayed out button and have, have it so that the developer has to implement like a download process and then notify through an event that it's ready. That's just an example of how it could be done, but we don't need to do it all. We just need to provide a method for notification that it's been done, and that we'd stop graying out the button.
Yeah, the problem
That
is
makes sense.
even we don't know when it's done from Android 33. So we just trigger download, and that will happen in some time in future.
So there's no way to know. Okay.
Yeah,
You have to have,
that was that's appeared in Android 34. That is why I increased the version and just use the API. So the only way that I can see that, as you mentioned, we can add a new property or new method that will return a list of available, probably two methods. The first one that will return the list of available cultures that can be used. The second method that will trigger the download, and user will check with the first method if that language is available or not.
But how does it work on, say, iOS? Because we're talking about building all this stuff for Android, which means we'd also have those APIs exposed, I assume, on iOS, Windows, Mac. Would developers need to do any of that, or could it be the same workflow where you still check for the language and there's just basically trying to think like, how would I code that, my multi-platform view model based on these APIs?
Yeah, for Windows, it's also available for check. As for iOS, it just worked. So I don't know if it's already downloaded, or because I haven't found in iOS settings a way to download some other languages. Maybe some of you know if it's available or not at all.
Just a thought. No, because I guess I was about to say we could write this in our documentation, but we currently don't support Android 33, so technically we shouldn't have this documented. Yeah, no, never mind. I was gonna say we could write in our documentation, like, make sure you check for the language specifically on Android, and here's how to do it. Otherwise,
it will work for developers and emulators, but for real users who will use this feature, they will not check if that language is available.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying earlier. Like, in my code, I would have to have this kind of workflow. It's like, if language is currently installed, else, and something crazy.
Yeah, if you open actually file changes, it's done in. It's currently available how I implemented it. So if you probably scroll a bit down, yeah, you have this if recognition support contain that language, yeah, but in this implementation, it just throws exception that culture is not supported. Otherwise, it has a list of pending on device languages. It's also not supported, and then we try to download offline recognize version. Yeah,
that one scares me too. I saw that when I was reviewing the PR. It's like if, and then we await something, else if, then we don't await something, and now the return from this method is going to be totally different and unexpected.
That method is Android 33. It's just not an awaitable, so it's just a trigger download. So we do not need to wait for something. As for Android 34, it's our like a wrapper. So we have a cancellation token source where we just wait for the task when it's done. Sorry, not cancellation, task completion source.
I have a crazy question, and this might completely change where we go on this topic. What would we gain from adding support for, because this just adds one more operating system, and sometimes that's a lot. Like, certainly on iOS, if we didn't support iOS 17, like, that would be huge to add iOS 17. But yeah, this is definitely a lot of work. It's going to put more onus on the developers to do checks and workflows before they call our API. We have to write more APIs. Is it worth it? Like, are the number of Android users stuck on 33 enough to move the needle? You know what I mean? Like, if we're only going to gain 5 users out of this, is that the best place to devote our time?
And also we have online speech recognition that works for almost all Android versions that we support, I think, for starting from 24 or 23. So it's just one version of Android for offline speech recognition, and and just in the next version 34 we have all methods that we need to make it clear API without some workarounds, triggers, some additional APIs. That is why I have some concerns, and probably I'm voting for close in this PR.
Yeah, I looked online there, and at 17% of users are on Android 33.
Gotcha. So less than 20%, and how many apps would use it? So, gosh, it's certainly something I would have trouble prioritizing. Like, I'm not going to tell anybody to run out and work on this today over the existing PRs and bugs we're currently fixing. So
we can have a poll asking people what version of Android they have. and if they use online speech recognition specifically on Android 33.
Yeah, and that's the other kicker. Until you just said that, Vlad, like you're like that this is specifically only for when the device is offline.
Yeah.
And so that even narrows the use case even farther. And so like if I was developing an app today and I was annoyed that say Android 33 wasn't supported, I would probably just have a little pop-up that I display to the user to say, hey, this feature only works when you're online. Like when they go to push the button, like we need you to connect to the internet, which seems like a fair ask given it's a mobile device that's designed to be online. So, gosh, yeah, this seems like a lot of work for.
I would have a hard time supporting this if it wasn't trivial to do. You know, like if this is going to take a lot of time and effort, I definitely don't see a way forward for this.
Yeah, Pedro just chimed in. What's up, Pedro? Fair point. You know, maybe we can just add to the documentation or something like that. Because yeah, everything is open source, so folks are more than able to take the code we have, copy paste it in their apps. No problems there.
If we make this method virtual, users can override it.
Oh,
yeah. That would
specific
totally work.
For downloading or triggering something.
That would be relatively easy to do.
Yeah. And then, like we were talking about docs a couple times, it's like, hey, here's an example how you can override it and add in offline support on Android 33. And we could even leverage the code from this PR, which would be cool. But yeah, I love that idea. I'll vote yes on that one.
I just realized I could actually solve the media element issue with start service. Make it virtual.
There we go. We're solving multiple problems. Okay. Tony agrees. Tony says an overload with at least a nice blog post or some documentation somewhere. Yeah. Okay. Gerald?
Sounds good to me. Yeah, that was
Cool.
that was kind of like a Deus Ex Machina. Just boom, another solution right there. Yeah,
love that. Yeah, because I think ultimately they're looking for a solution to their problem, and yeah, George agrees too. Okay, it's settled. We've got like 10 yeses between us and the community. Cool. Yeah, Vlad, do you want to let them know? You probably close the PR. And
I think I can left a comment. I can left a comment if author will reply to us and agree that with that solution and update it. So that will be fine. If not, I will try to help him with that.
Sure. I mean, yeah, the PR is not even one line of code, just one keyword. Virtual.
Yeah, I probably do not want to override the whole method, like start listening, I think, because probably it's a lot. Maybe just that code that related to Android 34.
Okay.
Like, yeah, that one that changed, so probably that will be enough.
Yeah, probably whatever this is not public. So that'd be a new API we've got to document anyways. Yeah, internal start listening.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but we have a new summary and compiler that will help us generate all summaries.
MCP. You forgot to say MCP.
Yeah.
That's the new thing.
Oh man, every time I hear that, I always think there's that old rap song. I think it's 2 Live Crew. Someone's, you down with MCP? Yeah, you know me. But I've tried that a couple times in like Slack and Twitter, and nobody's responded back. So I don't know if it carries. I thought it was hilarious. But okay, cool. Yeah, let's do that. Look at us solving problems.
Solving problems live on stream with people watching. Tony is agreeing.
Best way to do
Overloading
it,
with
right?
a nice block somewhere would be nice. There we go.
Oh,
I think
that's
that's the right way from George. Well, if George says so, then we have to do it. Cool. Next, pin Windows SDK package version. Okay, this is an interesting one. Brent, do you have questions, or I'm just gonna show you some things? Maybe that will make it clear. Because I wrote a
Yeah,
whole
no,
thing.
I read through it. I mean, it's one line of code, so really easy PR to review. Appreciate that. But yeah, I was just curious because it sounds like we want to pin to the Windows SDK, which makes sense. I understand what you said about like having to branch off the 11.1 release because we already moved forward, so that all makes sense. But yeah, I guess my big question was is it reminded me of when we had a similar discussion around essentially why we put these requirements in the release notes now, because people weren't updating to the latest version of MAUI and there was weird errors happening. And we tried to figure out, like, I still have a PR open that would like automatically crash your app if you weren't using the right version of MAUI, which we decided not to merge. Don't worry about that, everybody. But yeah, so I guess my question was, is this something we just throw in the release notes, or is there more to it than that?
Well, it should be part of the release notes. So here, let me. We have some time. So do we have more after this? I think one more thing, right? James, yeah, we'll get to that. Okay, so let me see if I can quickly share my screen without exposing too much things here. Oh no. Do I have to restart? No? Maybe? No? Okay, this one? Share? Is this working? Is this thing on?
I love when Mac's like, you need to quit the app and reopen it to share your screen.
Yeah, that's so stupid. But
no, I'm doing something.
Apparently I did. Okay. So what I was doing, which you understand, which was in the PR. I'm looking here because my screen is here, so this is going to be a bit weird.
Can you zoom in a little bit?
I have this PR for .NET MAUI where we have this new template, right, with the whole developer balance to do kind of like app,
cool.
which uses the community toolkit, right, to show all the things there too. So I was bumping that version because okay, too much to explain here. What's going to happen? So there is a version coming through Visual Studio, which is going to be .NET MAUI 9.0.40. So that's the one that's going to be in Visual Studio. That's always a little bit behind from the actual latest one. So that's going to be inserted. So we want to, and the templates are coming through Visual Studio as well. So I need to make this work with version 9.0.40. Bump the dependencies, all good. First thing I ran into is, hey, that new version doesn't support .NET 8 anymore. Kind of sucks. Because .NET MAUI still supports .NET 8 for the time being. So now I already had to kind of like split it into two. Yeah, so now I had to kind of like split it into two. Like, hey, if you're targeting this, then you can use this one at most. Otherwise, use this one. Then started building that one and came up with errors. Not this one. Don't care about that one. Which was, let me see if I can find it. Here we go. This is actually another. Wait, let me find it. What was it? WinRT something. Oh, there we go. So all kinds of like conflicts. It's probably a bit hard to see, and if I zoom in, it will get worse. But found conflicts between versions of WinRT runtime because the one was using 2.1 and the other is using 2.2.
Yeah.
I don't even know who is referencing WinRT, right? So this was a nice rabbit hole that I could dive in, to kind of like figure out what the hell was going on. So after doing that and talking to Matt Leibowitz, we figured it out. So I still don't know exactly how, but if you're like building on a random machine, there will be a version of the Windows SDK included. If that comes through Visual Studio or if that's updated with your .NET version, I don't exactly. I'm not really clear on the details there, but it might be a different one than the one that .NET MAUI is using. .NET MAUI pins it on a certain version just to have no unpleasant surprises. That's what you do. If you don't want surprises, you pin something, and we were not doing that. So after some inspection of like the NuGet packages, I was seeing like, hey, okay, a couple of levels down, we were referencing WinRT runtime 2.2 and .NET MAUI was referencing 2.1. So if we were to kind of like release, it's kind of funny that people are not hitting this more, I think. So maybe this is like fortunate so far that it didn't happen before. Although looking at the issues, I think I saw a couple of issues that could be linked to this. But now, just we use the same Win SDK version, and then it should all be good. The kind of like pickle I have right now is that I need to make that version work with 11.1.1 is what I'm going to release right now, because I need that support for 90.9.0.40. But I'll figure it out. That version, you can ignore that one. Just stay on the latest one. It's going to be fine. It's going to be amazing. And then for the templates, I'm going to use that one. So, phew, that's the whole story there. That was a fun afternoon.
This isn't going to be immediately helpful, but it also reminds me of a problem Sergio had with the MVVM toolkit. Remember where like we had to pin in our sample app to a certain Windows SDK?
Yep.
And he figured something out. So yeah, it might be worth shooting him a message on Teams and seeing.
Yeah.
What did you do?
Yeah, that might be good to double check. Indeed, I saw some issues on their repository as well in this area. So. It's just a whole thing with all these versions pinning coming in left and right through workloads or NuGets or transitive or.
I remember we removed this line of code probably from after migration from .NET 8 to .NET 9, or after some period of time after .NET 9, and backing it again. It's not a problem. It's just one line of code. Just a question: should I have the same version in my project? Should it be the same?
I think it's just brought in transitively through NuGet, like hey, you have the whole dependency graph, and it will just grab the right one.
Got it. Hope it will not have a conflict if some other libraries have different version in their code.
We'll see that when we get there.
Yeah, hope it will.
Yeah. And then, I guess my only other question for Gerald was, what do we do going forward? Like, is this something we'll have to always keep an eye on, continue updating, maintaining?
That's a good question. Like, how are we gonna know that .NET MAUI is gonna update this and update our version? That's a good point. I thought about that. I don't really have a good answer yet, so that might need some thought. But
bookmark the appropriate CS file and just check it every day.
Exactly. MCP. I'll write an MCP for it. That's what we're gonna do. No, I'll definitely have to think on that a little bit, like if we can do that somehow. But we'll figure something out.
Okay. And then for the immediate issue at hand, do you need one of us to approve the PR to get it through? What do you need from us today?
No, I shouldn't need anything. Cool. That 11.1.1 version is ready, but now the sample app is not building, so I'm figuring it out. I should be able to do all the things and get that in there, so should be good.
Okay. And if not, the sample app might also need the same line of code then, huh?
It's giving another error, which I'm trying to figure out with Matt again about pre-files. And the weird thing is, like on that 11.1.1 branch, I get the error on the sample app. Targeting main, no problem. It works. Like, I don't know. So, trying to figure that one out.
Yeah, my initial about that PR was that maybe it's related to some MAUI stuff, especially after your 30 minutes video. But
I know there's specific issues that 9.50 solves that will actually crash the sample app unless you're on version 9.5 currently. Like you'd have to revert some changes that were made.
Okay. There was the whole thing, of course, where there was an internal remove that we were using, something like that. So I think we have some incompatibility. Oh my goodness, more work! Just what I needed, George.
I love the idea, George.
All right, James. Last couple of minutes. Device-specific testing for media element and testing non-shell navigation. That sounds good.
Yes, actually, if you would refresh the page, I had a link to a better PR for that. Just refresh that. Yes, that's a pull request that actually has probably what we need. Um, Honestly, at this point, testing for media element is becoming an issue for me specifically because I actually have multiple PRs where if we could use this for testing, would actually solve 5 or 10 or 100 problems that I'm having in terms of providing proof that what I'm saying or proof what I'm doing is working. Because doing device specific testing for things like, well, say full screen. Right now, there's currently a bug where I have a fix in for it, like a PR to fix a bug. But how do you test for the height of the status bar when you're? How do you mock that? So having device specific tests to be able to just simply look at it or measure it and say, oh, it's 0 and it's working fine, would probably be very helpful. And I could think of 100 other ways it could be used for testing things like, does it work with the navigation page? Does it work like on iOS? You know, we have lots of navigation page issues for a media element, or we did. I'm being able to test and verify that the new package coming out with the new version of iOS isn't immediately going to crash as soon as we load media element in a collection view. And I'm sure we could find other uses other than media element for testing.
Oh yeah. So I'll say, James, I'm absolutely on board. If you can figure this out, because I dug back into this PR.
Because I would be happy to go down and actually make this work. This is something that would very much help me. So I'm very willing to do this. I just was concerned about the time sink I would spend in it because if I started doing this, I'd be really focused on it, right? So
it's a big, yeah. So this is honestly probably the best open PR/issue any of us can work on right now because, yeah, like you said, there's a huge gap in our testing capabilities because we can test non-platform specific stuff, but
I'm happy to clone it and start a new one because I don't want to really mess with that right now. But I can start a new PR. And the one request I do have is that if others want to contribute to it, instead of having a constant back and forth where I merge your changes, say Brandon or Gerald, just make the changes. Like, just feel free to jump in and make the changes if you don't like what I'm doing. And because I want to get this done, I don't want to have to spend a year, doing that again,
Why not?
Yeah.
Pedro's Pedro's also putting in a chat in terms of like, hey, starting over or whatever. See, the bill's not even found because it's so old. I think it's way easier now, and I'm not sure which packages are used here. I think Alan Ritchie, so Shiny, has a couple of packages too, because this indeed uses code that's only available in .NET MAUI itself. And the reason that we're not really making it available is because if we make it available, then we have to maintain it, and that's not something that we really want to do. So a couple of people in the community, like Dot Morton, as he mentioned here, and Alan Ritchie too, I think took the code from our code base. It's not like an area that's like super heavy on like the changes and stuff. And wrap that into a package, and it should be easier to kind of like implement that on our side as well. I think Matthew from our team, from the .NET MAUI team, I think he put it in a repo as well of like, hey, here it is, use it if you want. So that's kind of like how we do it, share it out on our personal accounts, so it has less kind of like expectations, but it's still super useful. So it should be easier. So probably, just have this as a nice inspiration, but start over with what we have today and try to.
Yeah, because I noticed it was all Microsoft internals, and that was my issue with it. Was I didn't want to touch it because it's not really something that I could probably recreate it, but that would be like a 90,000 line PR that would be full of bugs. So using a NuGet package to do this would probably be better for that. If anybody has any links to anything, maybe post at the bottom of this device test runners for, or post in Discord later today if you could, and I'll take a look into it and get started on this.
Yeah, this would be incredible. Like, there's so many, or let me rephrase it. The reason why we go so hard in the sample app is obviously we want to showcase what we have and show people how to use it in their apps. But the other reason is there's so much stuff we can't test that's device specific, and we need to unit test against a running iOS app. And so our only solution for that right now is, all right, well, put it in the sample app, and then that'll basically be a regression test. So.
And there's also the option of APM, which I do have working for just like you can run, like I'm running it against our sample app. Basically, it's just adding additional code to our sample app that allows APM to run. The only issue with that is implementing that on GitHub would be non-trivial. Running it locally so that all the developers that are working on it can run it would be trivial. But getting it working on GitHub would be something that would be an enormous amount of work. At least for me.
I've done it for you. I have a repository that does that, but we don't really want to do it because, like, there we go. That blog post I did right, George. Thank you. I did one on getting started with Appium. I did one recently together with Sweeky at Microsoft to run those at BrowserStack, which is kind of like a hosted cloud version of running your UI test with Appium. It's a paid service, so that's not really an option for us. But yeah, doing it through GitHub Actions, technically it's possible, but especially like the macOS build hosts are very underpowered. From the GitHub side, that's very intentional because they have to use physical devices as per the Apple license requirement. So it's very expensive to have a bunch of Apple devices. So they underpower them so that they can share it
sometimes.
Exactly. So they share it with a bunch of different projects and things and people. So trying to set up an iOS simulator and run that is not a fun thing. We will have like failing builds all over, trying to retry it.
I'm thinking more or less of doing it for like a local test so that we can verify that each of our projects are working. Yeah. And I just making it like having a separate, say, I don't know how we would do it, but to have it separate so that we can just run it against the thing and just test it, right? You know, like, so we can have a series of tests we could run.
Yep. So let's start with my thinking. Let's start with maybe too much at once to begin with. Let's have the device test stuff first. Yeah. That's something that we can focus on. That should be relatively easy and fast. Appium, super cool tool. If we're going to do that, let's make sure that we have the ability to add tests, run the tests locally, and at that point, figure out if you can run it automated in some shape or form.
Maybe I've got it running locally, testing with sample tests for Media Element currently, where it navigates and plays and pauses and stops and goes full screen and not. I've also documented within the PR, because it's not an actual active PR, it's just a draft thing, I think, on my own project. And it's basically that's all done. The part that isn't done is the developers need to install APM, and I'm not sure if we could ever, like, this would just be for our use, but we would need to write up a documentation how to properly install APM, because although I've read all of your documentation and I've done it, it was non-trivial the first time. The second, the third, the fourth, it was trivial. But unless you know how to set it up, we would be fielding questions from every one of our core developers on how to do it.
We'll just tell them.
And we can always do something. You can make filters on solution files. So they're, instead of a .sln, we can make a .slnf that we name something like contributor sample, whatever. I forget what ours is called today. Toolkit.sample.sln. So yeah, we could just provide a filter where that solution that a contributor would load doesn't even bring in that project, and it wouldn't error out without those bits. So we can make it easy on folks, but that's fair.
And then what I was going to say, like, maybe I'm just, this is a wild idea. Maybe we can contact BrowserStack and say, like, hey, this amazing community project, super important to that. And
actually,
great showcase partnership with Microsoft. Maybe we can get some runtime from you.
Yeah, I got a free license from BrowserStack for open source projects, so it's available.
All right,
so there's options
for 1 year. So you need to confirm that developing open source projects for free. So that's how we have. So
Should be easy.
Probably we can just we just need to mention the link to the browser stack in our
Yeah,
README
for
file,
sure.
and that is the all requirements that.
Pedro just sent me a ping on Discord with how to get it all set up for the device runners.
Cool. All right, then let's not delay any further because we are out of time as well. And apparently we have a ton of work to do. So let's just get at it. Let's just close it down and
get
do
back
our
to work.
Exactly. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for this April stand-up. George is really asking really quick, can you share that info, Vlad? Could I get it too? I'm guessing you use the browser stack stuff. We'll get it to you, George. You're on the Discord. We'll get it to you. Just follow up with us. Thanks so much for joining. See you next month in May. I'm just thinking about in May. I'll probably be in Romania. I'll see if I can join from there, but who knows? And then, of course, we will have lots of new amazing stuff about the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit as well. See you next month.